Amphibia is officially on a hiatus, and I figured to cope with that, I'll be reviewing every Season 3A episode. I mean, it's in the title. What else did you think I would do? This has been my favorite season of Amphibia so far, and I'll be giving out some reasons why throughout the video. This was quite a huge project to work on, so thanks for either joining the premiere or simply clicking on the video. But, before we get started, the first season, I found it to be interesting. Nice start to the series, and being the most lighthearted, the filler was good, and even for episodes like Combat Camp, they do seem to come in handy for future episodes. And Reunion was an amazing finale and a perfect ending for this season as well. Season 2, on the other hand, had more story, but got pretty rushed towards the end. Some characters added to the story, specifically Frobo, didn't have enough screen time because of more important ones, like Marcy. The story-based episodes were good, but the filler mostly just flat out sucked. I made an entire video on True Colors, which you should definitely check out after this video, but to sum it up, I disliked it. So there you go, my thoughts on the previous seasons, and now to tell you in great detail my thoughts on the third season. I remember waiting for this episode to premiere for like 2 hours, and honestly, it was worth it. The main thing I'd say this episode was going for was telling us multiple times how responsible Anne is, and also showing us too. It gets kind of annoying, but I will say her responsibility wasn't just a power-up suddenly added, unlike her powers. Even looking back at some of the older episodes, even going as far as Season 1, it was shown that she had responsibility. I also liked the threat of the robot trying to kill Anne, really adding some stakes there. But with all of that aside, I do have 2 negatives. Number 1, the quarantine song. Oh goodness, it was pretty cringy. And 2, I didn't like how they glossed over all of what happened in True Colors, which is another problem I have with True Colors. Sure, they have one moment where they discuss Marcy's death, but it doesn't feel that genuine. It's like Anne skipped the 5 stages of grief in an instant. In fact, the entire third season, they don't even cover the fact that one of your friends, who you've known for over 8 years, is dead. But overall, this is still a great opening to a great season. Also, this outro is my favorite, and you can't change my mind. This review is probably going to be a lot shorter than expected, I'm sorry. This is such a fun way to introduce the planners to our world, and the crazy shenanigans they get into. But seriously, I actually really enjoyed this episode. My favorite part was with Polly just trying to build a stuffed animal, and the babies were just getting in the way. And finally, I think there was a nice ending that showed how far Anne has come and the deep connection she has with the planners. I told you this review was going to be short. Next one. You might as well call this my thoughts on Sasha's redemption arc, since that's the only purpose for Turning Point. Sasha didn't really get that much attention from the fandom when True Colors aired, since this fandom literally only cares about the last 10 minutes, but I'm going off topic. Her redemption arc was a lot different from other arcs I've seen before, because most would have had fully redeemed themselves in just one episode and then they'd be good forever. Sasha's was more so debating between whether or not she was actually a good person, but still continued to do the wrong thing. And this episode is when she's finally deciding to self-reflect and change for the better after looking through Anne's journal and how it affected her. And I love it. As for any other stuff, I don't have a lot to say. It's certainly not the best episode of Season 3, but Sasha's redemption is enough for me to say probably 5th best? These 2 are probably my least favorite episodes of Season 3, but it's not to say they're bad. They're also the first filler episodes in this season, so why not talk about these 2 in one sitting? Feud follows a very similar story beats to Cracking Mrs. Croker, which is Sprig learns someone doesn't accept them, so he does some creepy stuff to get them to like them, and they finally accept at the end of the episode. I don't really like this kind of story because the main character doesn't learn anything. And Adventures in Catsitting, what an original title, isn't bad, just fine. The highlights for me were the joke about the planner's lazy cousin and Anne on anesthesia. That's funny. And that's it. I would have preferred a side story with Anne at the dentist. I think that would be a little bit funnier, but I'm fine with the finished product. I don't know why I keep forgetting this episode exists, but I do. I've forgotten multiple times while I was scripting this dang video. Anyway, so Anne's going through a lack of sleep, goes to a museum, breaks in, causing a mess, and finally caps out with a lesson about not burning yourself out and asking for help if needed. I can relate to Anne wanting answers faster, except for me, it is getting stuff done faster, and I end up staying super late into the night. So a moral talking about this kind of stuff is great. I'd also like to talk about Dr. Jan, who is introduced in this episode. I found her character to be kind of like child at heart situation. She always acts really enthusiastic about everything, specifically history and science. So, yeah, that's nice. I'm actually interested in what Matt is going to do with her in Season 3B. And lastly, the heist in whatever the heck this is hilarious. Point is, this episode kickstarts some huge potential, and I'm all in for it. Temple Frogs is a good episode, but nothing too memorable. It follows a pretty basic plot about Anne wanting to get away from something really important to her parents. I mean, I like the Thai aspects in this episode. I really like learning about other people's cultures and what they believe in. So, because of that, I'd give this episode an 8 out of 10. I'm going to surprise you all here, but this is my third or second favorite episode of Season 3. If you saw my video, True Colors is a bad finale, check it out by the way. I said Frobo didn't gain my sympathy and him dying was really unnecessary, aside from developing Polly's character. I still don't care about Frobo after watching this episode, but have gained sympathy for Polly. Usually I don't like Polly when she's the main focus, which is just because I don't have a specific reason. But I am glad she's developing more with her interest on robots instead of her character only being psychotic little sister. That's also why I gained mad respect for Dana Terrace for making Ida and King from the Owl House Season 2 different people instead of just Stan Pines and Bill Cipher copies. And another thing, Jess and Allie I found to be really likable and work off each other well as girlfriends. I hope we get more episodes on these two, or maybe some YouTube shorts, which would probably be even better and make more sense. And that's my review. Heck yeah, this has gotta be one of my favorite episodes in Season 3, and better yet, the entire series. So, I decided to recap the whole episode and share my thoughts. So it starts off with the robot who's been trying to kill Anne fixing himself when Andrews calls him and says, "You know what, I'm getting impatient. Kill Anne in an hour or I'll kill you." Which is honestly a really dumb move by the king, but whatever. Back at the Boonshoys' place, Anne feels guilty about not telling her parents everything, but before she can tell them, the killer robot breaks into their house. Straight to the point. Awesome. Also, I guess Anne had a good point about not bringing Frobo back to life, since that's literally how the killer robot finds their house. So then this joke happens.
Well, Mom, this is not a workout room.
And then they learn the robots after Anne, and they quickly get out of the place with a car, causing a car chase. Gotta hand it to the writers/storyboarders. This is probably one of the most unique car chases I've seen. Especially the moment where Anne's playing tennis with the robot. I mean, I've never seen that done before. So after a supposedly 9-minute car chase, they all head to a junkyard where they then face the emotional conflict. Specifically, Anne and her mother conflict.
I knew it. We were wrong about you. You're still the same irresponsible little girl who used to cut class. When are you going to grow up? When are you going to stop getting in trouble? When and when?
I don't know, okay?
It's a little cliche, sure, but it does show the relationship the two have instead of, telling us. And, they still care about each other at the end of the day, even during the final-ish battle. The actual final battle is when Anne uses her powers to kick a robot into outer space. Which, okay, that's one negative. It's pretty anticlimactic, admittedly, but I will excuse the fact that this is an 11-minute episode. Overall, this is such an amazing episode, and I can brush off the negatives really easy. Plus, if you notice something about Season 3, it's this. Season 1 and 2, while not bad seasons, I've tended to notice that there's one problem, and that is their filler episodes. Season 1 is filled to the brim with random episodes, and Season 2, while it had story, they didn't utilize it. So by the time True Colors aired, there was a lot of things to wrap up, and it ended up being a mess. So I was really hoping the same wasn't going to happen for the third season, and well, so far there's been a lot of episodes that I feel like are advancing the story, and even for filler-ish episodes, they have been tied in with the story-based episodes way more often. I mean, for Season 3A, sure, we've only gotten a recruiting some people who can help us, but I do like this new change of actual things affecting the plot, while still having a sprinkle of filler here and there. I was expecting this review to be longer, but from the notes I made, guess not. So if you've seen any movie about weird creatures staying at a child's home, there's obviously going to be government involved, and Amphibia is no exception, because it'd be pretty weird if there wasn't any. But unlike other movies involving the government, I think Mr. X is probably one of my favorites, because, well, he's actually interesting. And it felt kind of comical when he ended up showing the FBI just normal frogs. I don't feel like he's going to be in too many episodes in Season 3B, but if he does, that would be awesome. As for anything else, I liked Anne's parents in this episode especially, and I found some of the movie jokes funny.
And now for what you've all been waiting for. Another trailer!
20 minutes of trailers, and you people call yourselves civilized.
But really, other than that, I'm just gonna move on to the next episode. This is honestly one of the sweetest episodes of the entire show. I'd overall say Season 3 has a very different feel from the previous seasons, which makes sense. Why else would the first episode be called The New Normal? But in Sprig's birthday, it brings back the days of good old Season 1, when most of the episodes were on Sprig and Anne. And I like that. I like Sprig and Anne's friendship. Not saying I'm shipping them. Gross. I also don't ship Marcy and Anne. Come at me. Back to what I was saying. The birthday song was so cute, I can't get enough. Sprig and Anne's friendship was the same cute friendship. Oh my god! And overall represents a beautiful part of Amphibia, which is still remaining warm and lighthearted while still having occasional dark moments. No, Amphibia fandom, this show isn't giving you PTSD! Friendly neighborhood frogman. I've been a fan of Spider-Man for a couple years, and cried in the theaters after what happened to him in Infinity War. And there's also the fact that Spider-Sprig reminded me a lot of the Phineas and Ferb episode, The Beak, which is probably my favorite episode from that show. So with these two combined, Spider-Sprig was quite an enjoyable experience right before Olivia and Yunan, and probably my favorite filler episode of this entire show. It was funny and felt like a proper homage to the Spider-Man comics, movies, and shows. And one more thing. I know most of the Amphibia fandom is gushing over Molly Jo, another character introduced, and while I agree with the fandom, I'm also thinking to myself, how does she look like a younger version of one of my OCs? Like, it's not just the hair. They both have green as their main color as well, except for mine, it's a lighter green. I mean, it's just crazy. If you missed the premiere, you very likely skipped straight to this section, and I 100% blame you. But, I mean, I'll give you what you want. So the episode starts off with a flashback with Olivia showing Marcy the wildlife and both promising to take care of it. Cut to the present day, and the wildlife is garbage. Olivia and Yunan are sent to the king, who is talking to the night core. I meant to say core. But it looks like he's talking to absolutely no one. But then, after Andrews tells Yunan and Olivia their new orders, the two finally decide, let's not do that, and they secretly go out to save Marcy. I also want to say that I'm not the biggest fan of Olivia x Yunan as a ship, but in general, I'm not a shipper. Anyways, they got to save Marcy, learning more about those creatures we saw in the sleepover episode, and learning more about Olivia's character, which I actually did like, because she never really got a lot of screen time in Season 2. And when she did, she kind of followed a stereotype. I'd probably consider her underrated. Moving past that, they find Marcy, and now she's conscious, but also acts kind of drunk for 2 minutes. Which I've also not been a fan of that joke. In general, I hate this fandom and any joke they think is hilarious. Okay, and the next part where they all have to now face their fears is not my favorite part of this episode. Like, why did the writers think now was the time to put in jokes? Especially with Yunan's. Thankfully, they wrap it up pretty quickly, as we have only 2 minutes left in this. You probably know what's going to happen next, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Andrews catches the trio and reveals to them all the the core. And the core wants to possess someone with a brain, so Marcy it is. Also, I don't think Andrews is going to redeem himself. And I was so shocked that I didn't even watch The Ghost and Molly McGee like I usually did. So now Marcy is possessed by the core, who has this voice?
Why, hello there.
Like, I was not expecting that. Moving back to that scene, I think it's so disturbing, but in a good way. We know what's going to happen, but the anticipation of that moment and the mystery behind the core and Haley Zhu's amazing voice acting just really brings this all together for a scary but powerful moment. That's kind of how I felt for the entire episode. I would most certainly would go back, even if it doesn't end all happily ever after. Also, please stop memeing this scene. Your jokes are terrible. I really don't have a lot to say about this episode. It concludes Hop Pop's character arc of wanting to be an actor, and learned it's not as awesome as everyone says it is. But director, on the other hand, I almost spit out my drink when I noticed this. I've also got a feeling that Mr. X is kind of going to be like the Candace of Amphibia, except it involves the government. And to conclude my thoughts, I want a Humphrey episode. Instead of giving you a mouse a cookie? Yes, I remember that book series. So basically, this episode involves Anne meeting someone who may know how to get the planners back home, because they guilt-tripped her into doing so. This episode also introduces Terry, which is the name of another one of my OCs. Well, at least I'll sleep well knowing that that's a real name. Now, Terry, she was probably the one character I was most excited to see. For some reason, I thought her name was going to be Carly, but I also like the name Terry, which makes sense. Why else would I name my OC Terry if I didn't even like the name? Back to what I was saying. I was most excited for Terry's introduction, and you know what? She delivered. I kind of liked her mix of curiosity/kindness of her. I liked a lot of things about this episode. I liked how the episode explained the Skip Man and how it got to Amphibia. I liked how they're finally going to try to find a way to Amphibia. I liked how they showed some of the effects after Am's friendship with Sasha. In general, I think Season 3A is really hyping me up for Season 3B. There's been so many good episodes in this season. And, speaking of which, have yourself a froggy little Christmas everywhere you go. Yeah. Lambo Rock Strikes Back did this idea first, but whatever. I came up with it way before he did. So, okay, it's a little bit past Christmas, and I really wanted to upload this beforehand, but I didn't want to burn myself out, and let's be real, none of us are past Christmas yet. Froggy Little Christmas, the episode that still manages to be kind of story-based. So I guess Matt Brawley was right. Anyways, this special is about Anne trying to make her mom's dream come true, while the planners try to understand the holiday. I like how in the end, they still don't get what Christmas is about, but are like, whatever, we had a good time. And, of course, they're going to ask me what I thought of the song Rebecca Sugar wrote, and I think also sung. I did hear about this news before the special aired, and was a little scared. I thought it was going to be where Anne sang the song, and I was like, please now, I don't want this to be another no big deal. But I was wrong, and I still sing the song while I'm doing some drawing and stuff like that. It's a cute song, and Rebecca Sugar has an amazing singing voice, I think. I have two more things I want to talk about. Number one, the moment with Darcy has got me more excited for its confrontation with Anne and Sasha. And two, Anne finally gave that butterfly to her mom. Yay! That was like one of the three things I wanted to happen for Season 3A. So, to conclude, I won't say this is my favorite episode or even favorite Christmas special. I still thought it was a cute little episode that surprisingly ties in with the rest of the series. I'll probably watch this episode even in July, though. You finally made it. So, what is my favorite and least favorite episode of Amphibia Season 3A? Well, here it is, starting from the bottom to the top. What's your favorite episode of Amphibia Season 3A? Let me know either in the live chat or the comments. Here's mine. So, there you go, my opinion on the third season of Amphibia. You've probably noticed I can get very critical around this show, but I did it because I want to be honest, and a review with no negatives is kind of boring in my opinion. I might make a video with my thoughts on Season 3B, but depending on if I'm interested, a video on its finale, which I really hope it's good. So, have a great 2022, and I'm never doing this again. Bye.